Hey, Wolfpack, and welcome back. I hope all is well, and I hope you all had a great week. Tonight, we're reading The Drowning Experiment, written by Jacob712. But before we start, what murder case has intrigued you the most? Comment down below. I'd love to hear it. So, with that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. It's not on record as the Drowning Experiment. The official name is AQ512-G4. I've coined it for what it truly was. It was marketed as an opportunity for people with previous experience in aquatic settings to earn high positions for coastal work, aquamarine research, and other well-paying jobs. The premise was simple. Prove you can handle endurance tests in water, pass a psychological evaluation, and some tests for intelligence, and the jobs will open up. As an unemployed 25-year-old guy living with his parents, this seemed like a promising opportunity. I grew up along the coast. Swimming, surfing, and scuba diving on occasion were pastimes I'd learned to love. I called the number on the listing and set up my appointment. The nearest facility was only 60 miles from my house, and an hour commute didn't bother me. The area was nice enough that I would have been more than happy to find a place to rent and start working there. I parked my rusted Jeep in the parking lot and took in a breath of fresh ocean air. It was bitter, but even winters in California are still warm enough for me. I scanned the cars in the parking lot as if to measure up the competition. Several old vehicles on the brink of breaking down were parked around me. Along the west side of the building was a fleet of very nice-looking SUVs. I peeked inside of the nearest one, thinking I might get a company vehicle like that if I landed a nice enough job. I walked into the front door and was greeted by metal detectors and a guard. I removed my cell phone and wallet and proceeded to a woman standing behind a rather sturdy sheet of glass, similar to what you'd see in a bank. She took my information and had me take a seat in the waiting area. I let my mind wander as I surveyed the group of people populating the area. People of all ages were waiting eagerly for the chance to make plenty of bank. I sat next to a 39-year-old guy named Eric. He told me about his wife and his 2 children. His oldest daughter was going to college next year, and he needed the money to put her through college. He was a great guy. He spoke elegantly about his love for both his wife and daughters. A young girl across from us named Chloe chimed in about how she was a sophomore in college, about 20 minutes from the facility. She wanted to find a job during college so she wouldn't end up unemployed after graduation. I wish I was as smart as her when I was that age. A man walked in and escorted the group back into a pristine room filled with very expensive-looking machinery. Polished stainless steel equipment occupied the spotless room. The group, maybe 13 total, all gave the same impressed look while they let their eyes dance from corner to corner. "I'm glad to see such a nice turnout," he said. "We're going to start in our new ocean simulator we just had installed." We walked through a set of double doors to see a giant indoor pool. It must have been at least 50 feet wide and long. It was intimidating, but I'd adopted the false hope that I was in good hands. "This is 20 feet deep," the man said. "Nothing compared to the ocean just behind us, but it's plenty deep for our first tests." It all started off mundane. We swam to the middle of the pool with the task to tread water for 15 minutes. Nobody wavered, but worse was to come. The man pointed towards the east side of the pool, where a man was standing behind a table full of equipment gave him a nod. Within a few seconds, 2 large pieces of equipment on opposite sides of the pool began vibrating up and down. Gentle waves began crashing into us as we continued to tread. Some of us were blown away by the engineering of the machinery. A few in the group stood out for their arrogance. They scoffed when the waves came in, but we'd already been treading for 15 minutes. 10 minutes of waves hit us, and 2 people gave up during this test. They struggled to swim to the edges of the pool, but made it to safety. "Is this all we're going to do?" a man in the group yelled out. The man who brought us in smiled and nodded towards the man at the table. He flipped a switch and the lights dimmed. We couldn't see the edges of the pool anymore. He looked around to greet each other with the same scared expression. "Let it rip," the man said, as machines whirred from all sides of the pool. Waves hit us from all directions as we thrashed around. Only a few minutes passed as I heard people behind me screaming, "Someone help me! I..." pierced my eardrums. I recognized that voice. It was Chloe. I turned to see if I could help her, but it was too dark to see more than a few feet away. I heard screams and cries in every direction. It was a battlefield with no gunfire. The relentless waves hitting us from every path were clearly winning this war. I felt something swimming below me, and assumed they slipped a few people to help the weak. The lights flipped on, the waves fell silent, and the 6 of us remained. I looked around and locked eyes with Eric. I scanned the crowd, but Chloe was gone. I looked at my watch. We were only in the chaos for 7 minutes, and it wiped out half the participants. "The others have been escorted out of the building," the man conducting the test said. "Congratulations on passing. Dry off. We'll run further experiments after lunch." We walked into the parking lot, where Eric offered to give me a ride to a nearby restaurant. "The fuck was that?" he asked, as we sat down with our food. "No clue," I responded, as I took a sip from my Diet Coke. We didn't speak much and didn't eat too much food, as we knew we'd be subjected to more punishment later that day. There was something somber, yet powerful about our meal together. I felt as if there was something special about us, in the fact we'd made it through the mayhem, but celebration wasn't in order. We arrived back at the facility and sat patiently in the waiting room again. The few of us that remained weren't excited, we were worried. Like me, I knew they were slim on the other options, and hoped a little bit of tough work would pay off in the long run. "Follow me, we're going on a field trip," the man said as he motioned us through the front doors. We followed towards a beautiful boat parked just past the parking lot. Loading in one by one, we rowed along into the ocean. "There may be some scenarios where you find yourself stuck at the ocean," he said. "Every job will know your general location, but it may take time for help to arrive. We've tested your ability to survive a storm, but endurance is also a necessity." We rowed until the coastline was hardly visible. We were dumped into the ocean without life jackets and told to stay afloat. Whether it be paddling our feet or lying on our backs, stay afloat. "We will have you out here for 1 hour," he said. "You've got food in your stomachs, and we know where you are. We will monitor you from a distance just to make sure you're safe, and can handle the task, of course." "Make it 2, said a familiar voice. It was the same guy from the pool who wasn't impressed with the gentle waves. The man conducting the test looked at him from the boat with a look of dissatisfaction. "If you would like a 2-hour test, go take the SAT, he responded. "We're sticking to 1 hour. The boat drove off, and we were stuck in the ocean. You'd think there would be plenty of chatter to pass the time, but nobody was saying a word. Eric was lying on his back while a few of the others elected to stay vertical and paddle their feet. The sun beat down on us while we shivered. Just because it's California doesn't mean the water is going to be warm. I laid on my back and floated for what felt like an eternity. I imagined what I'd be doing after the testing was over. The thought of having a secure future brought me the hope I needed to continue on. I checked my watch. 34 minutes had passed. I looked around to see how the others were doing, and I noticed someone was missing. I brought it up to everyone else, and we scanned the waters around us to see if they'd floated off, but we didn't see anyone. "Fuck this," a woman said in commotion. "I'm swimming back to shore. Who's coming with me?" I looked at Eric. We were both considering it, but when he said he was staying there, I agreed to stay with him. A man in the group joined her as they set off for the coast. It was me, Eric, and the asshole who thought he was too good for the tests. Eric and I talked to pass the time after the others left. We wondered if they'd be able to swim that far before they would succumb to fatigue. The thought of your body giving up with no escape for safety scared us. He also told me about how he'd been unemployed for about 6 months and needed this badly to support his family. I told him I just didn't know what else I was going to do if this didn't work out. I checked my watch. It had been 1 hour and 18 minutes since they dropped us off. "Well, you got your wish for a 2-hour test," I said to the guy stranded with us. "Good," he replied sharply. "Survival of the fittest." I'd known the guy for a couple hours, and I already hated him. I didn't even know his name, but my gut feeling was to abandon him and swim to shore with Eric. We waited for a boat to come, but time was not on our side. We were dropped off at about 1:30. It was 2:50, and sunset was at 5. It dawned on me that they never asked for physicals from us, nor did they ask if we had any prior health conditions. They just took whoever showed up and threw them into these tests. By 3:51, I'd about given up hope. We were tired, even though lying on my back was no exercise. The endless waves were beating me down. My fingers and toes were completely numb, and I couldn't see the shoreline at all at this point. "I can't do it anymore," Eric said to me. He was white, his rosy cheeks lost all color. His eyes conveyed more information than any of his words could. They were empty. I wasn't looking at Eric anymore. I saw a broken man. I saw what happens when you lose everything. He started to sink when I swam over to him. I thrashed violently, trying to get him in time, but I couldn't save him. I dove below the surface to try and grab him, but he was too far down to save. I watched him sink until the water turned black. "Shouldn't have tried to get a job in the water," the man said. When he said that, I lost it. I swam over to him and wrapped my hands around his neck. His slight grin turned to panic as I held him under the water. His eyes opened wide as his arms lashed through the surface. "Maybe you shouldn't either," I screamed as I held him down. I felt his heartbeat racing as my hands clasped around his neck tighter and tighter. The fight was over. His eyes rolled back, his arms and legs draped below his lifeless body as I released him. He sank, and I was alone. Minutes later, the boat returned. The man administering the test helped me into the boat and congratulated me on passing the test. It was 4:06. I was in the water a lot longer than the hour he promised. "Why'd you come back so late?" I asked. "Boat issues," he replied without even looking in my direction. We arrived back at the facility, where the woman behind the counter returned my phone and wallet to me. "Hey, can you tell me what Eric's last name is?" I asked. "It's Griffin," she responded. "You can expect an email within the next few days. We have employers who are excited to interview our candidates." I thanked her and left the building. I looked on Facebook and found his page. I sent a message to his wife, letting her know what happened. The next day, the bodies of the 2 participants that tried to swim back to shore were found. They had injuries that didn't match up with shark attacks. The cause of deaths were unknown. I never got a single email offering me a job. Eric's wife messaged me back a few weeks later telling me they settled on a lawsuit. She got at least $2 million. It wasn't worth it to her. She would have taken Eric back over the $2 million in a heartbeat. Money doesn't replace people, but people can be bought with a broken promise of hope. Thanks for listening, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your own story, the links for my email and subreddit will be down below. I've also created a Discord, so if you want to join that, the link will be in the description down below as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And with that said, have beautiful nightmares, and I will see you next time.